Hello.
How are you?
Good.
Jay, did you get my email with the attachments and the link?
Yeah, I forwarded that to
All right, great.
everyone else. I'm not sure if they got it or saw it. It was a little bit.
That's what I'm here for. If you're, or Barbara.
Would you send them?
Just the memo to the council back in August about the reorg, and then the
yes.
org chart,
Okay.
and then the link to the actuarial studies.
Okay. None of us want to be one of those when we grow up.
It's funny. When I was in college, I had some friends who were going. So
I'll call this meeting of the Board of Finance to order. Thursday, March 15th. All members present, as well as the Director of Finance, Senior Accountant, and Town Manager. There are no minutes to approve, so we resume our interrupted march through the town budget. I just wanted to briefly note the town council did meet on Monday and did, although I didn't see it, there appeared to be consensus around a 2 to 2.5% increase as a target. So I think we had, at least a couple of us had talked about a 2% target, so I think we're in the ballpark.
tax.
Honestly, from what from the spreadsheet I put together, they're both going to be roughly in the same place. It just turns out that way. So I'm certainly.
See, you will never be able to, although you can fight all you want to do it, you'll never be able to sit here and decide what your rate should be and what percentage the rate should be. But you always have the option of having the document of the budget before you to know what your increases and decreases are. So depending on the grand list growth, you have to let that rate float. We would never be able to adjust this budget truly mathematically to try to hit that number, but we can if we keep it to a budget adjustment.
I'm not sure if that was my question. I was asking, I'm thinking of a much less important question, which was when the council says 2.5%, are they talking about 87 million as opposed to 9 million? Are they talking about the difference between revenues on property tax?
I believe the way the question was posed, because I think I was the one who kind of threw it out there in the first place, was the increase in the property tax that was considered to be acceptable. As it turns out, given a number of the other assumptions that are in the revenue projections and so forth, that roughly a 2% increase in the $90 million budget will result in roughly a 2% increase, a little less, in the property tax, just by coincidence. So that's why but that's irrelevant to some extent.
Well, it's not irrelevant because at some point in time here, we only have another few meetings and we have to come to an end before we get to our public hearing. And though I think we still have the rest of the budget to go through, obviously you have made some calculated projections where you'd like to go. That's going to be different than what we see before us. So we have to get to that. And we have to get to that sooner rather than later. So yes, I think we need to continue where we're at, but those that are going to be in question, we got to look at those seriously soon, if not the next meeting.
Absolutely, yeah. I think one of the things that I did throw out is the idea that this being the 15th, we have a total of 4 dates if we stick with Tuesday, Thursday, before the public hearing. The public hearing is currently scheduled for, I believe, the 29th. We could move it to the 31st, I think. I mean, and then still get the report in, which is due, I believe, the first Monday, which happens to be the following Monday to the town council. So we do have the ability to add one more meeting for the one we lost. We didn't make quite as much progress, so I think we need to get through. But I was just throwing out there that, yeah, we're, you know, if we forget about the adjustment to the budget that you proposed, the total increase in spending between town and school is close to $4 million, and in order to get to 2%, we have to get that to about, what I show is about 2.2 to 2.5 million. So there's a fair amount that needs to come out of that. So we need to kind of keep that in the back of our head, or at least at the very worst, have a heck of a good justification for why we're putting something forward that's higher than that, I think. So having said that, if anyone else has anything to say quickly, or we can move ahead to the, I believe was the pension was the one that we.
Page 177.
Do you want me to just start, Jay?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. I had sent out to the chair, I had provided on my presentation, and it's provided on the website under the Department of Finance, are the latest actuarial reports for both pension and OPEB being the largest contributors to this account. And one of the things that I wanted to make very clear in my presentation, I'll just reiterate right now, is that we are fully funding the actuarially determined contribution for a second year in a row for both pension and OPEB. That said, the amounts are less than last year, but we are still fully funding what the actuary is saying is the ADC, with some left over. So I remember the question came up in the presentation, well, how did you get that, 80,000 and some odd thousand on the other one? Where does that come from? 61,000. And basically that was me taking level funding from last year to this year, and then using the quote-unquote excess over the ADC to help reduce the budget in other areas, so that we weren't doing a straight flat fund from last year, which would have been arguably in a situation where we could have done it. We would have been overfunding, which is admirable, our pension and our OPEB by almost $600,000, which obviously would have been great. But with the other stuff that's in the budget, we chose to use that money for something else. But we still are overfunding those budgets by about $140,000. So that said, the police pension is being fully funded at $1.7 million when the ADC is recommending $1.6 million, and the OPEB is being fully funded at $1.5 million when the ADC is it's right here. When the ADC is, should have just tabbed the page, $1.5 million. So we see that we are overfunding, which is a good thing as we try to bring those numbers up to a higher funded level. And then the town council pension, admin pension, which is non-union employees, police administrative pension, and the local 808 pension are all reviewed and are in here for your discussion as well.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the admin pensions, is that dollar amount increased because of the new positions that have been added?
That's based on, I believe, salary adjustments, because what you're doing is the way that the fund is set up is it's a mandatory 6% contribution of salary by the employees. So I meant a 10% contribution from the town. So what you're seeing is the adjustment to salaries as they go up. And to your point, the reflection of the new positions in the budget.
So, Mr. Chairman, here, explain any danger if we were to reduce these budgets to the ADC, which it's something, you're looking at $162,000. What's the negative side effect on that?
That's what I had been thinking myself, so
there is no negative outside of not funding at a higher level. That's all the negative is. And my recommendation is, and will always be, always fund at least the ADC. If you do that, you are doing what the actuary is saying you need to fund at for the amortization schedule and everything. So funding at less than what is budgeted, but not less than the ADC, you are doing everything financially responsible that you should be doing as a community towards funding your obligations.
Well, having said that, and for discussion purposes, I would like to make a motion to reduce this pension and OPEB budget, and I believe the number would be reducing it by $162,794.
is there a second? Discussion?
I'll make a comment. I guess going back to some of the conversations we had.
Microphone. Use the microphone.
Sorry.
Don't touch anything.
Okay.
Yep.
As was stated by you previously tonight, we are in a position where we have effectively a budget which is somewhat within the target of both what the town council has looked at, what we have talked about, which was 2%. I understand wanting to then look for additional places to reduce the budget, but this seems to be one that since I'm not that familiar with actuarial tables, but I know that they fluctuate with the market and with a lot of other things that we have basically zero control over. So, and I know some of this is based on new positions, but making these cuts, I don't understand the context under which we are continuing to try and make cuts that are things that are not, I don't want to say critical, but where from a financial perspective, if you've got the money to be able to fund some of these things in the years when you can.
Well, if I can clarify, my comment was not that we are, if we talk about where we are at, I mean, if we say, well, yeah, we've agreed to reduce the school budget by $2 million like I proposed, then yeah, we're roughly there. But we didn't have that consensus in here yet, and certainly the school district does not come forward with anything to propose anything in that ballpark. So I think we're not at a place where we have any luxury right now until we start making actual reductions. And this is a place where we do there.
Just finalize the comment.
So just to clarify what you were saying.
I think we really need to see what that really means, because when I look at the numbers, I'm seeing something different than what's being proposed. So, at some point, trying to have these numbers match up to something that you can actually look at. I mean, if I look at the proposed budget by the town manager, which includes the change in the capital, which I feel is appropriate, prepaying some of the capital. And again, capital is something that gets looked at in this budget. Year on year, looking at it as just kind of part of your 2% isn't really kind of appropriate. In the years where you've got money available to be able to spend on capital, you do. When you don't, you don't. So to look at that as a percentage gets a little tougher. When I look at the budget numbers, I see something that says, again, looking at the taxation part, we're less than 2%. Again, I can agree that we wanted to do more, but I don't understand how So I may be alone in that, so.
Well,
I'll certainly defer to anyone else to talk to.
You're jumping ahead to dollars that have not been approved to be spent yet. In this budget is not the buy down yet. In this budget is spending $400,000 of surplus to balance the budget. That's what's in this budget right now. So you can speak of buy down, but until the council buys into that, which happens to be the transfer out, that doesn't exist yet. It probably will, because I think that makes sense to alleviate the $400,000 of fund balance to be used to balance his budget and to buy down some capital. I have no problem with that, but we're not there yet. And then, so this budget alone is at a 4%, roughly a 4% increase using fund balance. When you remove fund balance, you're there, and we can't even be there by law. So taking what the chairman is saying, I want to see his calculations, because what I'm seeing right now is that I agree that the $2 million needs to come out of these budgets. But I don't understand how we're going to translate that. I understand how we're going to translate it to a 2% change in this. And if only it changes 2% on the tax rate, I'd be surprised. I think it is going to go a little lower than that.
So, having said that, further discussion with regard to this particular, what's being proposed essentially to fund at 100% of the actuarial ARC, whatever it stands for, their recommendation, as opposed to over it, which the town manager had proposed.
With the understanding that this fund, this budget here that we're looking at, if we buy into all those new positions, some of that money is in here. If we don't buy into some of those new positions, we'll reduce this even further.
Right. But the 162 is the part that is flexible by our recommendation. The other one is tied to whatever the salaries agreed.
Well, actually, although I still think that's the number in motion, I think. But I think the 500 pounds, in my view, 500 pounds of room, which we haven't yet addressed, is really the school budget. And I'm not really quite sure procedurally how we're supposed to get back to it. But I think whatever happens with regard to the school budget drives most of the conversation associated with this budget, because it really does open up or close down opportunities to either spend money or not spend money. And I guess my question is, with regard to the school budget, is that the one unknown was the health care. And I'm curious as to whether or not there's a better handle on health care. And if there is, that drives, to a great extent, the flexibility we have in this budget. If, in fact,
I watched the part of the school committee meeting last night. There's more information.
either good or bad, right? Bad.
Not very good.
Not very good. So I think that will then drive I think that drives this discussion, because to a great extent, it's one pot, irrespective of how one decides how to apportion it. It's still nonetheless one pot.
Yes.
I don't know how to. I mean, as I said, we can still go forward with this, but I think it's
Agreed. There are some bigger questions that we're going to have to resolve, and I think Ken kind of brought that up at the beginning. I don't know if you want to. Basically, we're looking at the potential that the premium could be double what had been the increase, instead of 12%, more like 25%. So that's another little over $1 million. I don't know.
Which means our starting point is really $5 million.
Mr. Chair, if I may, and I mean this with all due respect, is if we keep talking about school when it's the town side, we're not going to get through the town side. And there's other meetings where, I think it's my understanding, and I could be wrong, that these meetings are set up to go over the town side, and then there's the additional meetings. So I just don't want to lose sight, because I know and I appreciate you wanting to stick to the strict kind of 6 to 8. And if we're spending half hour each meeting on school, we'll always be falling behind. I mean that it's your meeting, but just trying to be respectful. That's all.
I mean, I can,
Well, with that said, if I may, first of all, I was just educated that I need to amend my motion because I gave it the wrong number. The number is $151,529. So if you wouldn't mind amending your second, then we can just put that 151,529. And that was just given to me by the town manager, so I don't want to go below that funding. So, but having said exactly what you're saying and taking the town manager, if we can blow through the rest of this town budget tonight, the next meeting should be on the school, because I'm going to suggest that if what our chairman just educated with us with, if all that is true, we have a lot of work ahead of us.
the idea is to get some consensus on as many items as we can, find out where the sticking points are, find out what we have to work with. But yeah, I understand that there's a challenge to, there's a lot of what ifs.
Should we call a question, David?
Yeah.
Just so we're aware of this.
The question is called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-1. What's next?
Okay, so assuming nothing else on that, Mr. Chair, we have the opportunity to maybe do some catch-up and do police, or we just go right to the regular schedule and do enterprise funds and go back to police or public works. But I feel like outside of one or two potential questions with police should be a fairly short conversation. We could just get through with that one and go right to enterprise funds?
Sure.
Okay. So that starts on page 184. The numbers start on page 188. With regards to police this year, what you're really seeing is there's three things I'd like to highlight for the board. One is the third year of a request for a fourth lieutenant. The change here is in the moving up of a position into the lieutenant position and not backfilling the patrol. So it comes to a difference of cost of $25,000 instead of literally adding a $100,000 salary plus benefits position. So that is that change. The reasoning behind the lieutenant position is right now there is no administrative or supervision in the second or third shift, so this would be more of a second or third shift patrol supervisor or sergeant supervisor over patrol. And if the board remembers, and I apologize, I should have brought it again, but the argument as well is that as the demands on police departments continue to increase from an administrative level and all the different areas in which police are now involved. There are people whose majority time are in courtrooms and handling social issues. We got senior, elder, and youth activities that police are getting into. So the less and less uniforms are being on patrol and more in these administrative responsibilities. We feel that this is a good addition to the budget. The other thing too is the addition of a part-time, non-benefited position animal control officer. What this does is we used to have, and Mr. Swain, you might be able to correct me on this, but it's my understanding that we used to have 2 full-time animal control officers, and we are now down to 1. And as we start to explore some form of regionalization with animal control, right now we are at a very heavy call volume for 1 person. And anytime that our animal control officer is out on vacation, holiday, or sick time, we are calling in backups from other towns instead of having a backup who works in Westerly under our supervision. So based on the need from the community of the position and the increased call volume, we feel that at least a half a position is warranted. And I also want to bring to the attention just one other thing. Last year we had cut education in half, or at least by a couple thousand. And I just wanted to remind the board of the statutory obligation that we have to fund education for police. So all we're doing is really bringing that back to where we want it to be. And and so you're probably thinking, well, it looks like it's a cut here. So why is there a cut? What you're seeing is the true separation of professional development, which has gone to that line, which is why you're seeing that line increase. So if you go to the second page and it's the second line down, you see a pretty decent increase there. That all used to be under education. So what's under education, which is line 502060, that's the statutory requirements for our funding of our police education. 502-500 is the professional development that includes leadership training and management training within the department, plus all the other dues, fees, and expenses that lead to association membership and the like. So while it looks like it's a big increase, what you're seeing is a increase to the education budget and a lot of a transfer from the education budget into the professional development budget. I just wanted to highlight that. No, I would say it's more like a $10,000 increase, because I know last year we had brought that down several $1,000s, and if I recall correctly, it was at somewhere in the $30,000 range, and then I know council had, as you can see, had brought that up to 25. And so if you include some of the additional professional development that we're doing now with the LEADS training and some of the other Rhode Island accreditation training and the funding back to the appropriate level for the statutory requirement for education, it's somewhere in the range of like a $10,000 increase to both lines combined. Microphone.
You probably have answered this, but as far as the budgets, the proposed budget's concerned, we're dealing with an incremental 1 lieutenant, right? I mean, so how does the number go from 309 to 345? I mean, wouldn't it go up about 100,000?
No, because what we're doing here is we're taking, it'll be an internal promotion up to a 4th lieutenant and not backfilling that bottom rung patrol officer. So it's the difference between a lieutenant and a patrol officer pay and benefits. There's no benefit calculation. Yeah. Excuse me. It's a head count, correct. So basically we would be eliminating that bottom vacant patrol officer position.
So the net is about 35,000.
It's about 25,000, yes.
But your patrol officer budget is going up $160,000. Am I reading that wrong?
The 7% increase? Right.
So it doesn't look like we're reducing it to move the position up. It looks like we're adding something substantial here.
And keep in mind that that includes all the pay increases from last year to this year with the contractual pay increase for all the different steps and everything too. So what you're seeing is pay increase, not position increase or lack of position decrease.
So it's steady headcount.
Correct. There is no change in headcount except for the addition of a half administrative or support service with the ACO.
Right. Now, is that a scheduled body, or would that just be a body that would be brought in when the full-time goes on vacation or takes days off?
It'd be scheduled. It'd be a part-time position.
But only as a consequence of the ACL officer?
No. This would be,
Steady and just absent?
it'd be roughly a 20-hour-a-week position. And then based on scheduling, that's when that person can work on the days that the full-time animal control officer is out.
So on the patrol officer, the increase of 165,000, part of 165 is pay increase.
The overwhelming, the change is pay increases.
Oh, it is just pay?
Yes.
Oh, I thought I heard you
There,
suggest there might be duty changes or
no, the position, the head count of patrol officers is going down by 1.
right.
So this reflects the 3.5% contractual pay increase per step. So that's how it compounds into a 7% increase for the whole line item.
So it's not only 3.5%, it's length of time there and steps and all that.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So are you saying right now that this potential increase to lieutenant, you have no commanding officer on your second and or third shift?
Correct.
You don't have a sergeant on duty?
No, I'm sorry, no lieutenant. There are sergeants on duty.
Okay, so you have commanding officers, second
Correct.
and third shift?
Correct.
Okay, so we're not worrying about not having a commanding officer. We just want to add another lieutenant for that later shift.
Plus the requirements that are on the other lieutenants for all the other administrative duties. This would truly be a patrol supervising lieutenant versus the other lieutenants who have and like I said, I apologize, I had it last year, I can easily go get it, but there's the laundry list of what each lieutenant's responsibilities are, and each one has over a dozen that roughly pertain to some form of personnel supervision. It's all the other administrative duties that that level of the department requires.
Well, just this and just all other new positions or adjustment positions, I can't support in this budget.
Yeah, I'm in the same place. So we can either,
Well, let me just ask this, assuming, just mathematically, assuming that we reject the concept of the fourth lieutenant, what is the number change?
My recommendation, if you do that, would be to at least recognize in a motion, if you were to make that recommendation, is to put back in the patrol officer that is being eliminated to fund the lieutenant so that we don't lose a head count. But because there's no real benefits change, because assuming a patrol officer with a family health insurance, assuming a lieutenant with family health insurance, there's no change there. So you're really looking at, I think it turned out to be about a $25,000 to $35,000 difference.
so the headcount increases is about 25,000, and the animal control is like 22.
Yeah. Yep.
So that would be roughly $50,000. So, is
So
there,
status, so just to be clear, status quo, adjusting for what almost is contractually mandatory.
Yep.
The actual would be approximately a $50,000 reduction versus your proposal.
Correct. And then any corresponding secondary effects such as the pension and stuff. So, I mean, it's going to be around $50,000.
I'll make that a motion to reduce this budget by approximately $50,000, taking into consideration the reduction of the increase to lieutenant, but keeping the patrol officer at the same count, and removal of the part-time animal control officer.
A second?
Well,
We have to have a second in order to have any further discussion.
I second.
Okay, discussion.
The $22,000 animal control officer, if you were to have, is there a number in prior year's budget that reflects the cost that we incur in bringing another town animal control officer here in the absence of our animal control officer?
yeah,
Is the $22,000 really understated? Understated?
I would say it's more than what we're doing now because it's adding a more regular versus the infrequent and random times in which we need to bring in somebody and just pay them their hourly rate.
Not that you know the number, but just for the sake of example.
Yep.
If in fact we pay $10,000 to other towns with regard to their overtime, then in fact, we're actually just saving $12,000.
I can't say that. Yeah.
But if that was the case, if that was the case, we would have it in another overtime budget that we would be able to look at then too.
In 2018, is there a number that reflects the animal control officer's costs?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so there really is. You just don't really know what it is.
Off the top of my head, I don't. But to Mr. Swain's point, that we wouldn't pay that out of the salary line. We'd probably pay it out of the overtime line because we don't have a budgeted line for like ACO temporary assignment or whatever you might want to call that.
Right, so with regard to overtime and standby, in the budget of $356,000 from 2018, in fact, in there is the money that is paid to a non-town animal control officer on an as-needed basis. We just have no idea what that number is.
Right, but I can find that for the board.
I'm just saying, are we?
It's
$22,000.
it's not going to
Saving 22, but we're really not saving 22.
I wouldn't even say you're saving. I don't believe that it equates to over $22,000 a year in additional costs to the town for alternative ACO coverage.
There's an offset there. We just don't know the magnitude of the offset.
Correct.
I just had
Microphone.
maybe consistent with what Paul has said earlier to some extent. I don't have any trouble with provisionally refusing to approve this budget. I don't have any problem with provisionally not having the fourth lieutenant. My problem is that I don't want, ultimately there may get to be the time when people say, all right, what do you really think? What's the priority list here? And I'm nowhere near reaching a conclusion about whether or not we really need a fourth lieutenant as opposed to 2 less dump trucks or whatever it may be. And so I'm okay with this kind of, step-by-step stuff, as long as we eventually step back and say, okay, what are we really serious about? And, what are we not so serious about?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I would say is this is a 5% increase in this budget, which
It is, the majority of that increase is contractual pay.
that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, it doesn't change the fact that it is a 5% increase in this budget, which is a pretty substantial increase. So far, our sort of baseline has been no new positions unless they're really either a critical need that's not being met or if they're legally or contractually required. To me, it doesn't seem that these two positions meet that.
Well, I mean, I guess
That's
I'm
kind of
not,
where my
I'm not
thinking
totally
is on it.
okay in the concept that automatically a new position is on the blacklist. I mean, sometimes
I'm
you
not
gotta
either.
get the job done.
I'm just, that's,
I think I'm in agreement. My issue is, my concern is that we say no new positions, so therefore the animal control officer, and I get why no new positions is an appropriate policy to pursue, but I'd hate like heck to discover after the fact that we actually paid $25,000 in overtime for a non-town animal control officer. That would drive me crazy. Then we're not.
And I certainly don't disagree with that. And that's why we're, for lack of a better term, we're tentatively approving these budgets with or without changes. Interestingly enough, that that every single one of these budgets, once we find out the true picture, that keeps changing on us, but once we find out the true picture, a lot of philosophies may change. We may find that, well, you know what, maybe let's do what Paul's saying about funding capital better for future growth, and we look at positions as well. But I'm not there yet, especially with Jay's wonderful bad news again tonight. So yes, I'm more than willing to go back and relook at all this stuff at that later date. So I don't think any of this is completely off the table, is where I'm going with this.
okay, so unless there's anyone else, what do I say now? I say,
motion and a second.
all those in favor, that's what I say. All those in favor? Opposed?
No.
All right, so that was clarifying what we were just voted on. So the vote passes 4-1. And we move on.
All set then with police at that point? Okay, which then just goes, if you want to just fast forward, please, to several pages. 217, and that's the police technology budget. What this is reflecting is the computer replacement plan, which we've implemented townwide, as well as additional software, which we discussed last year. And the software relates to the, if you look at page, should have a page number on it, 17, 18, 19, 20, it's 220. If you go to page 220, or the page that's before 221, you'll see what that changes, and that's the new right there, and it's the security cameras and the cost for the professional services for such license and hardware. And so that's for stuff in the interrogation room, video, audio.
I'll make a motion to accept the police safety technology budget as presented.
Second? Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. We will skip Public Works for now, if the board is wants to do that, and go right to enterprise funds.
There's just this little
Oh, the
safety.
yeah, the EMA. I'm sorry, you're right. So this is actually, I'm glad you, thank you, Jay. What we've done here is we've just made this transparent. Before, this was sort of snuck away or not really presented in the budget before. And so this is our actual costs of what it costs to have our EMA and deputy EMA, which is our EMD, our emergency management director and deputy emergency management director. Both, this accounts for 50% of their pay, the other 50% being grant funded. And the agreement that we have is if they do not get the grant, then they don't get the pay. So this is the town's This is the town's contribution to their services during emergencies.
So it's already being funded.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to accept the public safety and civil preparedness budget as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All's in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? Motion carries. All right. You said,
If it's the board's desire, we can go to enterprise funds or we can go through Public Works. Because we missed Public Works on Tuesday. That would have been the other one. If we want to do enterprise and then come back to Public Works, if there's still time tonight, maybe that might be better so that we keep moving forward with the schedule.
yeah, let's just,
Okay. So we'll start with again, just a clarification from the presentation. This starts on page 225 of your budget book. What we had done, this is the last year, and I will try to do my best if the board needs it to help you follow the bouncing ball. And if you remember, we played this game 2 years ago. But what we've done, this is the final consolidation in terms of trying to make it as transparent and as understandable to the public as possible. For the everything that we did this year was budget only. It wasn't operational. We made no operational changes. It's just for the budget book. The building and ground budget is now just building maintenance. The highway and drainage budget is now highway and grounds maintenance. And recreation maintenance is eliminated because that was consolidated into highway and grounds maintenance. The purpose for that, again, was just strictly budgetary to say that all custodians fall under building maintenance, all laborers now fall under highway and grounds maintenance, and all mechanics fall under equipment maintenance. So the people with the same titles are now in one budget versus spread throughout. And there was some issues with that as people would be hired and they think that their salary's under rec maintenance. Well, I don't do highway work, I only do rec maintenance work, and no, you're a laborer, you do what we tell you to do. And so this helps that. So with that, in the detail, we made it very clear whenever there was a transfer from or out of a line item, you see what account it came from and how much is added to an account. So all that's in the detail. That said, on page 225, we have building maintenance. So what you see here is now you have all the custodians under one. And this also, let me go to the right one. This reflects any transfers in from recreation, which was not part of Public Works, and any other facility that has an outside of enterprise funds that has a building maintenance line item is now under this budget. So it is that last catch-up that we did 2 years ago when we transferred all those. This was the final, make sure we got it all. The other thing that this includes, which I think you'll be interested in, is the increasing the second shift custodian from a part-time to a full-time position due to the fact that at least 3 to 4 nights a week we have meetings in this building, and we are playing with part-time custodians and full-time custodians, making sure that when we get to the 10th, 11th, and 12th, and 13th, sometime 14th hour of the night, that this building has coverage and we're not dealing with union issues, and making sure that it stays as nice looking for the public as possible. And that's pretty much it for this budget. Microphone, please.
I'm going to reveal how challenged I am here, Derek, but on 225, one of the things under staffing is talking about the Assistant Director of Public Works. I'm sure, where is the director?
That's going to be in the next budget we discuss, because that's under administration.
And so in some places we seem to have allocated time among various subsets, but not here. In other words, he pays no attention to building maintenance.
The Director of Public Works oversees everything in Public Works. However, the way, and again, this is in the next budget we're going to discuss, but when you look at the Public Works Director allocation, You have to look at it from a fund status, not a divisional status. So he's 50% funded by the general fund and 50% funded by the enterprise funds. And that's appropriate because we have a DPW administration budget, so we want the Public Works Director under administration in the general fund.
Okay, and then just mechanically, this assistant director, where is he?
So the assistant director is also under administration, but he is 100% funded by the general fund. Because there's one assistant director there's an assistant director, so org chart. You have your director of public works, and then you have your assistant director of public works, town engineer, and assistant director of public works utilities. Fully enterprise fund, fully general fund, and engineers under engineering.
So I'm not sure I'm following you. I'm not crazy. When I look at page 226, for instance, I don't see anybody who purports to be the assistant director.
Because there is not an assistant director, there is a manager of building maintenance. So if you want to go one layer down in the org chart, it's not a title difference. There is the director, the assistant directors. So when you want to go to building maintenance, start with director, assistant director of public works, who oversees building maintenance, grounds maintenance, equipment maintenance, and utility budgets. And under building maintenance, you have your manager of building maintenance. So that position oversees all building maintenance across the town.
I think I'm deep in the weeds, but I don't understand why the staffing for this includes the assistant director.
It doesn't.
Well, it says it right on this page.
But there's no funding there. It's a zero.
He's getting caught up in the explanation where if it doesn't exist, it shouldn't be part of the explanation. I think that's all we're at.
Yeah, I mean, it's zeroed out. That's not in this budget.
Well, all right, and then I'll get out of the weeds. Why is, I'm just curious, why do we rebuild the ramp at the DFW?
Because it's a town maintained building under a lease agreement.
All right, Mr. Chairman, having heard all that, I've never understood for the length of time that I've served in the community why we had a part-time custodian at night and full-time during the day. I've always thought it should be just the reverse. However, in my time here, I certainly understand why they have one full-time during the day, and obviously they need a full-time at night with all the meetings that happen in this building and making sure the building is secure. Having said that, I understand that's an increase in the position. I will support this budget for DPW building maintenance as proposed.
Is there a second? Discussion?
On contractual services, what's the basis for the increase?
Yep. So that is on page, what you're doing is you're seeing the transfer in of many of the things that were in rec maintenance as well as beach maintenance. Each of those budgets had a former building maintenance line item, and so you're seeing the transfer in of those funds.
So if we were to go there, each one of those departments, we'd see a decrease in contractual services to reflect the transfer.
You'll actually see no rec maintenance budget. That has been completely zeroed out. And then under the beach, and then in recreation and leisure as one department, not only do you see the combined, but you see the decrease. Correct. If also, I think what might be helpful, because I asked for this myself, what I'll forward out to the board is very detailed, but small, so it's not crazy, spreadsheet of what are the actual changes to all of the public works budgets, so you know what are those individual line items that actually did increase regardless of transfers. I'll get that to you guys.
Yeah, I think that's the question.
Yeah.
Anyone else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, the motion carries.
Okay, next up on page 237 is administration. Here, there's a couple things bear pointing out. One is a slight allocation change to the administrative assistants. And what you see is the administrative assistant line going down. That's because based on the nature of those positions, they are being, there's a 75-25%, and you'll see it here, that one of them is 75% in the sanitation fund and 25% in the general fund, so that's why you see that go down. But you also see what looks like a new position, and it is not. It's actually a promotion that has already occurred that's now just being reflected in the budget. There used to be an administrative assistant who got promoted to senior administrative assistant. So in order for the title difference within the financial software system, we wanted to call that out as that title. So the senior administrative assistant already exists. That's Cheryl Holk. She was promoted after the last performance review. That said, this does also include the transition of the Public Works Director's administrative assistant, which was created last year when we created the director level at a part-time rate to making that a full-time job.
I'm looking at, so you've completely explained administrative assistant because you're telling me that's a 75-25 split.
Mm-hmm.
That 34,000 is the 75%. Am I accurate in that statement?
The 34,000 reflects one administrative assistant being funded at 25% in the general fund, and the upgrade of a part-time assistant to a full-time assistant with a 50% allocation out of the general fund.
Okay, that part-time assistant, is that 2 lines down, which was 10,400?
Yes, yes.
So has that position been
We're eliminating the position to make it a full-time position.
but that hasn't happened yet?
Correct. It's a budget.
Okay, because you said certain ones have happened.
The promotion to senior administrative assistant has already happened.
Where did that come from?
That's a current administrative assistant who was being, last year, we funded that at 50-50, and now that's being funded at 25-75, but also, I'm trying to get everything straight. We have one of the administrative assistants, so last year, this year, we changed up how we allocated the administrative assistants at DPW. Last year, we had the 2 administrative assistants, and both were 50-50 general fund sanitation. This year we said, well, but one of those administrative assistants truly is a sanitation department administrative assistant. So they are in that budget now. Now the other one went from 50-50 to 25-75. And then the other one was created at a part-time level for the director. And we are now increasing that from part-time to full-time and making it 50-50. Okay. I hope that helped.
It does. But that helps me understand the administrative assistant line and the part-time administrative assistant line. And maybe I missed it, but where did the senior administrative assistant come from? Because this is the first introduction in this year.
Yep. Go to the administrative assistant, $45,870 in the high-level detail. Right here, Ken, on that page. Look at the 45,870. Mm-hmm. That was inclusive of 2 administrative assistants. So if you go to this year, you can see there's 2 administrative assistants under that 45,000 because that's, if you think about it just high level, that's a full-time salary, but it's 50-50 for 2 people. Right. So that's 2 people, and then you go down to the 10,400. That's the part-time administrative assistant for the director. So there's 3 people in that $56,000. Now, fast forward to this budget, and you see two people at different allocations in the 34,000, the elimination of the part-time and which is going up to that 34,000, and the increase in a promotion and fully or partially funded the allocation of the senior administrative assistant.
So it's a half a head count.
Correct, is what we're adding, but we're also adding in the benefits,
And giving a salary increase.
which has already happened. That's already happened. This is just reflecting that, yeah. And that's why I said at the beginning, all the salary lines outside of new positions already reflect the given salary increase. We're not giving salary increases in the budget.
So the $12,000 increase for moving from a part-time to a full-time position, plus I assume it goes from zero benefits to full benefits.
Actually, in this case, it doesn't, but we're reflecting the full benefits package now because when the part-time assistant who was transferred from a full-time assistant to the part-time assistant position, as they were transitioning out, they retained their benefits when they went to the part-time position.
Is that standard?
Only in this case it was. So no, the answer is no, it's not standard.
So the benefits transfer, basically?
Yes. Cookie?
So, that's essentially what we're looking at I think what we would say, though, is that if that position was not approved, there would be a savings because those benefits would then go away, right?
In this case, if the position is not approved full-time, it is a part-time position with no eligibility for health benefits, correct? And that's what would be reflected in the budget. You would take that out.
So when you budget that, do you budget it the 22 family, or do you budget it at a lesser rate? 22,000 for the family?
Family.
So in essence, for what the chairman was saying, this is actually a $34,000 savings if we keep this at part-time.
Pretty much, yes.
Plus whatever, Medicare, FICA, and all the others, so.
Right.
Well, then I'm going to stay with my same train of thought that I would be happy to tentatively approve this budget, DPW administration, without the part-time addition.
Without moving the part-time to full-time.
Without moving the part-time to full-time. Yes, I'm sorry.
So that is a motion, I take it?
Yes.
Is there a second? Discussion.
Just so it doesn't get perpetuated next year, can we fix the typo on the first line on the description? Oversight,
Which line? Which page, Jay?
it's 2737.
The comma?
No, the word oversight.
Oh. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, we'll fix that. That was an oversight.
Great catch. Lawyer.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-1.
Jay, I just like being ironic.
I was thinking that could be. Could be in some John Roberts or
Okay, next is on page 244. It's the engineering budget. And because this is a small budget, any changes make the percentage increase look big, but what you're really seeing here is the there are no significant changes. What you're seeing here is really a difference in the professional development budget and the health insurance line. And what that's doing is I believe that's just funding the opt-out.
Is there a motion to approve this
So
budget
moved.
as presented? Second, discussion?
I can clarify that. That's not the opt-out. What it is, and I appreciate the motion, but I just to clarify my own statement, what it is what the former engineer, utilities engineer, head for health insurance, this just is increased based on the allocation. It's only a 20% allocation in the general fund, so it's not to pay the opt-out. I just wanted to clarify my statement.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Unanimous.
Okay, next up is tree warden, and this is an increase in, a requested increase in the contractual services line when the town does need to contract out to cut down a tree. We're basically budgeting for 10 trees a year at $1,000 a tree, and so this is just reflecting that request. I'm sorry, professional services, I'm sorry.
So is it safe to assume we only budgeted 5 trees last year?
Yes.
How many did we cut down?
I think this request was in there last year.
Yeah, we did the same thing last year, and it was, but to date, we have spent just under $4,000 in that budget.
So we
So I'm
can,
sorry, year-to-date, you spent 4 of the 6, right?
or I think of the 5. For the,
Or 4 of the 5. So
Well, yes, of that line item, correct. So let me. So of that line item, we have spent just over $3,000.
I think our basis last year in looking is to look at actuals for the past 3 years and say we had only been spending about $2,000 a year.
What, may I?
3 previous years.
Yeah, one.
That was what we were looking at.
Right, and I agree with that. What's been made known to me, especially in this line item, it's definitely the case throughout the budget. But we do a really good job of trying to spend only what we've been budgeted. And so the number of trees cleared reflects the amount of trees able to be cleared. And that's why we're requesting the increased amount so that we can be a little bit more proactive instead of reactive. And that's what it is. We're just trying to be a little bit more of a full-service public works department, that's all. With more money, you can do more things. That's basically what this is saying.
So having said that, if we were to increase that to 20,000, you'd spend 20,000. So it's irrelevant what we budget at because you're going to control the spending because of the budget.
Yes.
The reverse is true, which is that you have a rolling wave of issues that you're not dealing with when you potentially under budget something.
Oh, I agree
So
with
there's a
that.
balance, somewhere that makes sense, but, that's the problem sometimes when you look at budgets and just say, yeah, it's a 50% increase from last year. Well, if last year was woefully under budgeted, yes it is, but this is where numbers can also be a little bit deceiving. So I'm not saying I really don't know what the issue with trees is, but again, I think when you have a budget like this, as the town manager says, you stay within your budget, because that's what you're budgeted for. So, I just don't want it to appear like, well, if you have $10,000, you're going to go out and some happy with this tree, then, cut these trees down that, don't need to be cut.
I'm going to make a motion to accept the DPW tree warden budget as presented.
there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
No, I think we've,
Yeah, we've kind of covered. All those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries.
Thank you. The next up is on page 256. We have our newly named Highway and Grounds Maintenance budget. This used to be Highway and Drainage.
Let me ask a question.
Okay?
Maybe I'm just totally lost. I don't understand how, if at all, page 253 relates to page, say, 270. We're talking about snow and ice.
If you're looking at the cover page, and that's what you're talking about, are you talking about staffing? Staffing, 253 to 273? Okay. Because it is the highway and grounds laborers who do the snow and ice clearing. And so in order to give a department cover sheet, a divisional cover page, you know, what was presented shows basically what's being done out of this budget, and for the divisional cover page for highway and grounds maintenance shows the people who are doing it. So it's the people versus the project, I guess is one way of putting it.
So this is the combination of page 256 is a combination of 256 and 257. Is that correct? In my understanding?
This is one budget, yes. This is one division, 256 and 257. Because if you look at 257, it's all zeroed out.
And that's,
Yeah.
having said that, rather than taking the time to go through it, although if the chairman wants to, looking at the bottom line changes, knowing that it incorporates the previous year budget of $569,000, I will make a motion to accept this budget as presented for DPW Highway and Grounds Maintenance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Yeah, I mean, it looked to me like we were essentially,
Yeah, there's no new
Double.
positions. It really does reflect the transfers in, and like I said, I'll get you that that outline of the. I think it comes down to like 5 or 6 lines in all of DPW budgets that have some level of an increase, not reflecting the transfers. The DPW budget's very lean this year. It's almost, the whole budget entirely is almost flat funded from from this year.
the only one I just noticed here is seasonal wages.
Because that's bringing in,
Is there a reduction on the other side somewhere?
yes,
Oh, okay.
yep,
Never mind.
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone else? All those in favor? Opposed? None, motion carries.
Okay, on page 274, you have snow and ice. The reasoning, what I had said during the presentation, and I'll just revisit it, was that we're trying to make this fund an operating fund, not a 50% fund. What I meant by that was the practice for the last several years, if not well beyond that, has been to pretty much level fund based on actuals for this account, with the sort of the trick being that all you're seeing is the amount expended out of this account, knowing full well that there was the account that you tap into the restricted fund. My presentation to you tonight and before in my presentation is the thought process of making this the true operating budget for snow and ice removal, and funding it at a level that truly reflects the cost of, say, a 3-year rolling average of snowstorms and their expense, trying to come up with an idea, which we're not going to do tonight, of what should that restricted budget be for snow and ice removal. And anytime the operating fund needs to roll over into that, all you're doing the next year is funding the restricted amount, the restricted account to that appropriate level that you want. So let's say you go over this year by $10,000 out of restricted fund, but you always want restricted at $100,000. Well, next year all you got to do is fund that at $10,000 to get that back up. So this budget, what we've done is we've taken a little bit more in the overtime and standby and in the materials, in the hope that we can get to that point where whatever the operating budget is for snow and ice reflects somewhere in that 90 to 110% range of what it actually costs on a 3-year rolling average of snow and ice removal of the town.
Just for the sake of illustration, not that these are the real numbers, but I'm just trying to figure out how you envision it operating. So let's say you have $100,000 in the restricted fund, but you have an actual experience of $110,000. So you draw out of the restricted fund $10,000 and then re-up the restricted fund the following year to get it back up again.
To that level that the town feels is appropriate, just as a safety net, versus we could just go to that whenever we want, like we've been doing. And that's what I showed in my presentation, but I have for you is, of the last 5 years, yes, we've done pretty good in the general fund, but the last 5 years of spending out of the restricted account was $50,000, $50,000, $25,000, $34,000, and $54,000. So we're constantly basically spending $50,000 rollover. So what we've tried to do here is try to supplement that a little bit so that we can stop relying as much on restricted account, because we're trying to save in the operating fund.
And then if you had an underspend with respect to anticipate, would you put the underspend into restricted?
No.
Why not?
Because it would be, what that would reflect is a year that you didn't have a high snow year. And so if the town feels on a 3 or a 5 year average that we are funding, let's just say $250,000 gets us between overtime, materials, etc., and we have that 1 year where it's blizzard, maybe like 3 nor'easters in a row, which never happened, then we could tap into that restricted account, because that's for the emergency years. That's not the year. And one could argue, and I'm just making my own recommendation, but it's just as easy to argue, hey, if you got those years where you're not spending enough, start building that account too. But you would just do that through year-end transfers of, you would make note that whatever you don't spend out of the snow and ice general fund account, that balance always goes, regardless of trying to balance other line items at the end of the year, that balance always funds the restricted line as a transfer at the end of the year.
And I would see that as a prudent way of handling just that, because, like I said, these 3 nor'easters would never happen. But isn't that what this transfer out line in there was designed to do back when we see it in the 2016 actuals?
I think the argument is that it kind of never has. What's happened instead is we kind of minimally fund this, and then we just pull in whatever we need from restricted. So in some ways, it's kind of, it makes more sense to kind of average fund this, I think, or it makes sense, and then use the restricted in kind of bad years. But then what I think I heard was that if we're under budget here, we would run that off into that restricted account and build it up. That was the one concern I had, is if we're kind of average funding this and we have a good year and this money just kind of goes into fund balance or something, I think we're not reserving it for the bad years.
And I would think that we would make that recommendation to the town council to design it that way, that if we're going to fund it here, if there happens to be an overage, that it goes into the snow and ice restricted. I think that needs to come as a recommendation, or at least I would hope that the board would consider that.
I'll make another recommendation. Since we have a capital plan that is not fully funded, the years where we would underspend snow and ice, which I would say would be one-time events, or, you know what I mean, certainly not the common, there would be just as much of a conversation at least about what is the appropriate use of a one-time surplus, you know, and one certainly could be to go into a restricted fund, but another could be that it goes through fund balance and it's used for capital items. So again, I think the conversation is well worth having to say, what do you do with overs or unders that really are kind of the anomaly and not what you consider to be, you know, the average of what you're spending for that.
So, having said that then,
Then I will make a motion to accept the DPW Division of Snow and Ice budget as presented.
okay, any discussion?
Well, actually, I do. So are we saying that we're recommending that we develop a policy with regard to?
No, we just approve the budget, that's it. We will, if we want to get into policy questions later, we'll do just that.
In our transmittal letter, we could just kind of recommend that this would be a good way to handle it, yeah.
Okay. Oh, did you vote? You voted already?
Yeah, all those in favor? Opposed? None, motion carries.
Okay. Next up, 278 is utilities. This is a newly named budget. The old budget used to be called streetlights. We have edited it to say utilities because now what we're doing is making now more transparent the cost for all utilities versus having to try to figure out which division that line is or if it's spread across various divisions. So now what you see is the cost for the town's electric, natural gas, water, circuit fees, and streetlights. And so all those accounts have been transferred into this account.
Well, I must apologize because I didn't have the time to go look at these transfers. Obviously, the increase is $267,000, so I'm just going to ask the question, have all these other transfers been zeroed out in total to capture that $267,000?
Yes.
So if I take the time to go do that, I will see zero in all those
Yes.
accounts. Thank you. With that said, I will make a motion to accept the DPW utilities budget as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carries.
Okay, final DPW is equipment maintenance. As I stated before, this now reflects all line items that are throughout the budget, general fund, that have to do with equipment maintenance. So that's basically vehicles and equipment. And so that's why you see the transfer in big number increases. You'll also see, and sort of this is a way, maybe this will get cleared up next year, but what you can almost see how those lines were transferred in when you start to go more towards the bottom of the budget and you see harbor parts, highway parts, police parts, rec parts. That's sort of how we did it this year, just to transfer it in, but you could probably see that being edited next year to just parts. And so what this does is it just shows all the mechanics now are in one budget.
And again, I'm going to ask this because of not anticipating into this budget, when just to have you state these motor vehicle parts that were once budgeted at $75,000, we're now incorporating all these other ones into this, which happens to be an increase of $102,000 into this budget just based on harbor parts, highway parts, police parts, recreation parts, and beach parts. So I would be able to go to look at all those transfers and find those at zero as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. With that said, I would make a motion to accept the DPW equipment and maintenance budget as presented.
Second.
Discussion?
Assuming that those are all zero transfers. So are you in effect saying on or approximately this is a level funded
Yes.
item?
There's a couple of
Thank you for that
health
question.
insurance and workers' comp numbers went up.
And that reflects any transfer in of people who were in other accounts or allocations of those that were in other accounts.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carries.
Okay, so that is Public Works. Thank you very much.
It wasn't that bad.
Nope, that was good. You want to start enterprise funds?
Yes.
Okay.
if we-
First up, we have the shelter. I'll remind the board that this is year 2. We're in year 1. The budget is year 2 of the shelter being an enterprise fund. What you see here is 2 things. You're seeing the final allocation of a custodian being added from DPW to reflect the costs of shelter maintenance into this budget. And you're also seeing what would be, if approved, the final step pay increase to the shelter coordinator, as that was a 3-year adjustment to that line so that it didn't all happen in 1 year to make what is effectively the number 2 of the shelter management. The position was unfortunately called administrative assistant before, but they were actually the number 2 of the, so that position has been renamed shelter coordinator. That was done last year. And this year reflects the final step pay increase to that position. Other than that, besides some professional development, that the budget remains the same.
Reading this correctly, one could say that what this shows that this is costing the town about $246,000 budget.
Yes. And that's why I wanted it to become a enterprise fund so that the residents knew exactly what this, to fully operate and staff this shelter, what does that cost? As part of the general fund, those revenues are being offset in other places. And so what this does is it shows you that with that transfer in line, and that's why I do what I do with my presentation where I show the divide it by households. What is the annual cost per household? And that's about $25, about almost $26, $25.88 per household to have a premier shelter in the town. Bless you.
Thank you. Excuse me, I have a question. Basically, it's on the explanation, but it's in the equipment line, 506060. And I just want to get back to it. Because the explanation says, shelter equipment building improvements will carry if not used. Is that creating a fund balance for the animal shelter?
So all enterprise funds are able to carry fund balances. And so, yes, that's actually one of the things that we've talked about with both shelter and sanitation, because we know that water and sewer carry decent fund balances. I think decent is understating it. But you want to get to that point where you do have a minimal, and when we created the fund balance policy, the shelter has its own designated fund balance limit. So does sanitation, so does water, so does sewer. Water and sewer are high at 50% is our recommended level of prior year costs. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what the other ones are, but I believe the shelter is around 10%, and I believe sanitation's maybe around 10 or 25% because of the cost of some of the more expensive equipment of sanitation. So we actually want to get to some level of a minimal fund balance for this, for any potential random unknown costs.
Okay, but in what Mr. Stevenson was just asking about, the contribution from the general fund, or the taxpayers, if you will, the $245,000, which translates, I think you said, to $25 per household.
Yes.
In essence, all these line items, if not spent in this amount, go into this own fund balance account.
At the bottom, correct. It's not like a capital line where they would move, each line item would move over. It would just fund the reserve at the bottom.
So is the $245,000 a lump sum payment into this account at the beginning of the fiscal year, incrementally in 1/12 allotments throughout the year, or waited till the end of the year to see if there is underspending in these lines, and then that 245 may not need to be put into there?
It's part of the year-end transfer. So you would know what is the final cost based on expenditures, and then if you are under that, you only fund from the general fund that amount.
But no more than this?
Correct.
Thank you.
I think if I read the custodian reflects transfer from the part-time position at the town hall. Is that, I thought I saw that in the town hall budget.
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
The custodian too, is that a new position?
It is. In here it is for this. I know that this is not a new position. The only new position for custodians is if we go part-time to full-time for town hall.
I can explain that one. It's an allocation. They were working that much at the animal shelter anyway, so the decision was made to charge it to the enterprise fund. There's no new position. It was just a mere allocation from one to the other.
Yeah, that custodian works at the police department, the shelter, and is that it?
And DPW.
And I think some of the DPW. So what it was just making sure that the proper allocation to the fund is made.
I'm just not sure where I see what budget it came out of.
It would have come from, I believe it would have come from building maintenance, and potentially if they were doing any utility works, it would have been a change in allocation out of the utilities. I can find that out. If that wants to be an open question, I can find that out for the next meeting.
Depends if anyone else is concerned about it.
So, Mr. Chairman, your concern is that this is a new position as opposed to the explanation from go ahead, I'm sorry.
My concern is if it was just transferred, then there should have been $20,000 savings elsewhere. In the building maintenance, the custodian 2 position is up by $20,000.
I think what we're seeing here is
So that's actually up.
I think it was 100% funded out of, it was either 50-50 or 100% funded out of water, and now it's being 57-43
Haven't looked at water yet.
shelter and water.
Okay. All right.
And Ken, just to clarify my statement on fund balance, I believe that if there were excess revenues over expenditures from other revenues, that would contribute to the fund balance. I'm agreeing with myself, but I'm just making it more clear, not making sure that you do the full allocation of the transfer in from the general fund. So probably would never happen in the shelter budget, but you could see that happening in, say, the sanitation budget, just because of the revenue numbers.
Thank you. With those explanations, I will make a motion that we tentatively approve the Animal Shelter Enterprise Fund as presented.
Second discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries.
All right, now the fun one. Sanitation, page 304. A couple things have happened over the last year, which is making this budget interesting. We have seen, based on the needed and necessary increase in the tipping fee, and a decrease in commercial usage of the transfer station. But there's an offset to that in decrease in material out of the transfer station. So you will see, so just the first thing I want to point out is you will see both a decrease in revenue and a decrease in expense in waste disposal, naturally. Last year, so this year, sorry, fiscal years and budgeting, sorry, we're always working in 3 years. This current year, we increased based on a Johnston requirement of $7.50 onto municipalities. This budget reflects another $7.50, and we're going to be coming to the town council with that reflection again with the ordinance to reflect what's being pushed on us by Johnston of $7.50. We have seen a very significant positive trend in both trash bag receipts, daily receipts. Some of the scrap initiatives that we've taken have shown positive increases in revenue, but you can see a pretty significant decrease in the haulers/commercial. That's $750,000 right there. You'll see also basically the equivalent decrease in waste disposal on the expenditure side. The town council made it very clear that from last year with a roughly $250,000 transfer in to support sanitation, that the town was not to have any allocation. That's a tall order, but I'd say we did pretty darn good. We got that down to, I believe it's $60,000 in 1 year, and that's reflective of a 3-year trend of not only bringing, when it wasn't an enterprise fund, bringing the difference of what was a perennial $750,000 loss to the town all the way down to $50,000. And then when we made sure that we factored in all funds and made an enterprise fund, that made the transfer in back to $250,000. This brings it all the way down to $60,000. And that took eliminating a vacant position. So now there'll be one less heavy equipment operator, and trying to cut as much as possible to actuals or unutilized budgets based on actuals. And so this is from my opinion, a very lean budget to the best of our ability, based on conservative revenue estimates.
Mr. Chairman, you have to educate me, please, and it certainly doesn't have to be this evening, but on all these vehicle replacement plans, because I'm seeing that the budgets, there's a variety of budgets that have these put into them, and they increase based on the plan itself. But I'm wondering, with what the town manager just educated us with, if $50,000 of that, the increase is $50,000 year over year, and if that could be removed, and therefore our transfer in could be reduced by $50,000.
Can I comment, please? Yeah, please. So this was by far the most painful decision I made in the whole budget, was this line item that Mr. Swain just brought up. I know that touching the vehicle replacement plan at all potentially destroys the entire vehicle replacement plan, because once you touch it once, that means it's always touchable. And the whole plan is 3-year step up, and then you fund it at that level forever. I want to let the Board of Finance know, and I'll let the Town Council know too, I touched it in this line, and that's why you're seeing it go up $50,000. It's going up $50,000 because we're still fully funding it. The general fund vehicle replacement plan in the capital budget and the water vehicle replacement plan reflect a 3-year lease to purchase. That's what the plan called for, so that we were always 3 years lease to purchase. I made the decision to get this budget down, and because arguably one could argue that these vehicles are very expensive vehicles in the sanitation budget, for this fund only to make it a 5-year lease to purchase to spread the cost out. So I played with that as much as I could to make sure that we stay within our plan. And my fear, especially since I'm not going to be here now, is that any more playing with this budget, whether it's this line item or in the general fund or in water or at any part, is now the vehicle replacement plan starts to fluctuate, and then by the time we've even implemented it fully, it's not what its intention would be. And so I just wanted to let the board member know that has been reduced significantly. That's supposed to be $400,000 if that was a 3-year replacement plan, a 3-year step up. And so by making the very hard decision to make that a 5-year plan, knowing that I'm messing with the plan, that's how you get to 250.
And again, now doesn't have to be the time, but I would like to have a lot more education on this plan, 3-year, 5-year, what deliberations went over it at the time. Certainly, I appreciate the consideration that these vehicles are long-term use vehicles. So in my personal opinion, my experience with this, they don't need to be on a 3-year plan. They can certainly be on a 5-year plan. In some cases, although it won't reduce it much, they can be on a 7 or 10-year plan because of their condition and how they're maintained. Irrelevant to this at this point in time, and I certainly thank you that there's not $400,000 in there, because obviously it would just be a transfer in that would cover that.
Right.
Although I think that the $63,000 is minimal, and therefore for no other reason at this juncture other than having nowhere else to make a decision other than that, I'm going to give you I'll make a motion to tentatively approve the sanitation enterprise fund as presented.
Is there a second?
Second?
Discussion? I have to say, I honestly don't recall from last year that those amounts in there for the improvement and transfer and vehicle replacement. I'd have to kind of go back and look at what we've, and how that ties into the capital and the restricted. I think we have restricted for loader tires and things.
Restricted for loader tires, but loaders are used throughout. The reason why that's the challenge mentally with having these enterprise funds is that all capital just like under sewer and water, all capital for enterprise funds goes in the enterprise fund budget. And so last year we did $75,000 for improvements, and that was going to be for helping with the floor replacement of the big building.
I remember that item.
Oh, okay.
So the idea is that we're putting in the budget, and then it's going to actually go to fund capital?
Only for the transfer station.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, you have the mic, go ahead.
I just want to say, in comment, and again, not knowing the ins and outs of how the vehicle plan is put together, but that's one of the issues with putting together a capital plan, is not that every year it's the same thing or it's the same department. I mean, the capital needs for the town itself, and again, regardless of whether it's in an enterprise or not, this year it might be a vehicle for sanitation, next year it might be a vehicle for some other DPW or something. So having a multi-year plan is tough because that's not how most towns think. Most towns think year to year on their budgets, ourselves included. I mean, that's how we look at it year to year. A capital plan by its nature really needs to be a longer horizon than that. And you're right, once you touch the plan, it opens, it's like Pandora's box. It just opens the plan up to being disrupted. Not that it doesn't need to be reviewed and periodically changed, but it is a different animal than the annual budgeting that we're all used to.
And I will email to the board either tonight or tomorrow the vehicle replacement, the full spreadsheets, all that stuff that I presented to the board last year with the visual step-up plan so that all the new members have that for reference.
Well, I don't profess to be an accountant, but I mean, if this were a private sector situation, we'd be running depreciation accounts on all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And isn't there experience in the accounting world about, I mean, not just theoretically, but I mean, aren't a lot of depreciation accounts based upon historical experience?
It's not necessarily historical experience, but there are certain standards for depreciation for various type of vehicles and equipment. So cars, trucks, generally 3 years. Heavier equipment, 5, potentially, maybe 7, depending upon the equipment.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that what was said earlier is clear, is the funding plan for the, how about I start over? The funding for the plan, it was for, for all budgets, a 3-year step up. you'll see when I show you the vehicle replacement plan that for a lot of this equipment, Ken, I mean, this is based on a comment you made, is these vehicles are in 10, 15, and 20-year replacements, not 5 or 7. It's just the funding part gets you to a flat part within 3 or 5, now 5 years. That's all that is, not the replacement of the vehicle.
I mean, trying to go to, I think, the point that Paul has made a number of times tonight. Whether you call it capital expenditure, or vehicle replacement plan, or whatever it is, its corresponding concept in private sector accounting are various depreciation accounts. And so, I mean, I don't really see any reason philosophically, other than the fact that it's politically delicate. I don't see any reason why there shouldn't be what amount to depreciation accounts, i.e. long-term capital replacement plans, vehicle replacement plans, all this stuff that we know is going to have to be done, and we're just delusional not to provide for it.
I forget, we have a motion
Well, I just have another
on the table, right?
couple questions.
Okay.
For the town manager, only because we're seeing for the first year a manager of sanitation, senior admin assistant, and mechanic welder. How were these positions added to this budget?
So if you look at right above manager, you see assistant public works superintendent. That position is now called the manager of sanitation. So that's just following the bouncing ball.
Okay.
And then the senior administrative assistant is the allocation of that partial allocation of the senior administration that was in the DPW administration budget, because they do some work over this enterprise fund. There's a small allocation of their budget. The 25% allocation is in this fund. And then the mechanic welder is now what we should have done last year, and both this board and town council recognized it, but we didn't take any action, is making sure that because equipment maintenance works on sanitation vehicles too, having some allocation of a position in this budget to reflect that cost.
So what you're fundamentally saying, other than allocations, this is, for the most part, level funded?
This budget is decreased funding.
But especially with respect to the personnel.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carries.
And I will email out the vehicle replacement plan again to everybody. And if anybody wants to come in and have me go over, I'd be more than happy to do that again as well too. Next up is I'm going to do my absolute best to represent Paul Carina tonight. On 325, we have the water budget. And this budget
Can I
is...
just ask for a question?
Sure.
Normally, we've done the enterprise funds
Later.
later.
Correct. So what we're doing this time is because we are doing all enterprise budgets now as part of the process, which means you won't need to do that secondary process this year. It's all be part of this process.
Okay, we had taken like a whole meeting to do those at least, right? So
If you want, we can wait.
I don't know what's involved.
I think
in it.
just two questions that would cover both accounts. Are there increased rates for either one of these enterprise funds?
Yes.
Then we probably need to have another meeting to discuss them in total, the sewer and the water.
I mean, that's my only reason for it, is because it doesn't need to be in at the time that everything else does.
There's no...
It really does require us to give it some separate thought, I think.
there's no rate increase to the water budget. there is a, and I know you said, well, I'm just answering, should I just answer the quick question? Right. The discussion that happened last year, and especially with council, with regards to the sewer ad valorem fee, ad valorem tax, was instead of playing that game where some years, a lot of capital, level funding debt, other years, less capital, level funding debt, ad valorem tax goes like this. We want to get to that point where we fund the ad valorem tax like this. Maybe it's a penny up or a penny down every now and then, but just keep it at this level so that the taxpayers aren't seeing big spikes, big drops, or maybe it's a big drop and then 2 years and then it's back to where it is, but now it seems bad because it was, so it was understood that the last couple of years we've been at 41 cents. And to get to basically like a 45 cent, I think is where Paul is saying we should just be for, a while. This budget represents, I believe it's a 46 or 47 cents. So it'd be a 6 cent increase on the ad valorem tax, with the hope that we get to roughly that number, and then that's where we just stay to help fund capital as needed and debt.
So I didn't look at it at all, that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, are we going to set aside a specific date for subsidies as well? And I say that because a couple of people have asked me because they want to be part of the public when we do that.
That's scheduled for Tuesday.
We have not had a separate, are you saying, are we going to do it we could do it at the next?
That's all, I just want to know if it was coming up.
We've gotten through, I think,
It's everything. I'm sorry. It's everything that we have literally gotten through everything except now, assuming water and sewer is a different day, everything except restricted capital subsidies and revenues.
Can we start on restricted tonight?
we can do, I'm just trying to think in terms of our timing, what we're trying to get to.
And I might be able to provide more information to the board on Tuesday, barring what happens on Monday with regards to the restricted and capital accounts.
Perfect then.
Can I just ask for being new? What is our responsibility on water and sewer? Are we?
Same as every other line.
We're supposed to make a separate recommendation. There's no transfer in, those are funded out of their own anticipated revenue, so we have to make a recommendation on a proposed increase.
There is. You have the ability to opine on every line item in the budget, just like you do every other budget.
You also have to be well aware that both those budgets have a fund balance.
100% fund balances.
Yeah. They're very strong.
And the policy that was adopted by council, albeit that's a conversation to have instead of, and I totally agree. I'm not trying to say that, that's being conservative. It is conservative. That's just always the bucket to grab from. We did that a little bit last year to help alleviate the increase in the tax rate, which didn't affect the fund balance really at all. But yeah, the fund balance policy calls for 50% fund balance at a minimum.
In the past, we've always been concerned with the rate increase because when you're looking at the general budget and a tax rate increase there, possibly one you cannot get out of, do you also want one here when its own fund balance may be able to cover that rate increase? That's a conversation we've had in the past. Not saying that it would happen this time, but something we could consider.
The other comment, not so much my experience here, because it's been pretty limited, but in previous towns that I've lived in, the water sewer capital needs are significant, and they are not always, they're planned for, but there usually is not a 10 or 20-year really fully understood where you would be using a fund balance to manage that capital need. And since some of the capital needs, if they're emergencies, really are things that do need to be funded. I mean, I think it's a unique, department as far as its needs go. But I think what ends up happening, or at least again, not my experience here, is that the fund balance, because it was very similar in the town I lived in, it had 100% fund balance, mainly because of unknown. They didn't really have a good capital plan that looked far out, and it just really gives you a very conservative buffer for whatever you need to do with water source. So again, the more we develop a capital plan and have a better understanding of, as well as have an emergency fund for, those situations that definitely need to be dealt with without benefit of being able to plan well for them.
I think especially on the sewer side, because of the fact the capital projects are run through that budget, you get these wild swings. So whether you flatten that by coming up with a sort of average number that's a little higher, or pulling from the fund balance when you have big capital needs, especially if the goal is to not necessarily run it down, but get it to a more reasonable figure. So I think there's some discussion to have around those two that we haven't begun to think about.
Right, and just for some perspective to the board, and I think this will be really valuable, is let's just hypothetically assume everybody's okay with going to 45 cents and just doing our best to stay there for years. Like, that's the level that we're comfortable with, barring any minor 1 or 2 cent increases or decreases just based on circumstance. At the proposed rate of 47 cents, knowing that we're at 41 cents, let's say we wanted to go to 45 cents because we're all comfortable with that. It's a difference of $37,500 of fund balance use. So that's the perspective. I just want to give some perspective.
And at 100%, we're at, I forget what it was.
And
The amount of
I'll forward that, but
the sewer budget is what, like $4 million or something?
yes.
So we're talking about a $4 million fund balance. So,
Can I just ask one question for clarity? So we're at 100% fund balance as a practical matter, but as a structural matter, it's 50%. In other words, by statute or policy, it's 50%.
By policy, we want to be no less than.
No less than 50.
Right. It's a minimum standard. Okay. There is no maximum standard. Because in the general fund balance, we are saying anything over 25% fund balance would be deemed excessive. And that's where you should be doing tax relief.
Right.
But anything under 15%, you need to start having some sort of remediation plan. Whereas in the sewer and water funds, the fund balance is identical, policy is identical, where we're saying not less than 50%, period.
And educate me on the fund balance. Sort of with these funds having their own fund balance, does that get calculated into the town's fund balance for the agencies? Not at all.
No, not at all.
Okay, I wanted to
because
make
they are
that-
just business-like type activities.
Even if they're over the 50%?
Yes, because that's just an internal policy. That's not a rating agency policy or anything.
I thought it was yours. Just giving it back to you, sorry.
So I will email that out to everybody just so that's constantly running through your mind as well.
So what I'm trying to kind of think out loud here, we have 2 meetings scheduled for next week. Right now, the public hearing is scheduled, I believe, for the following Tuesday, right?
Yeah, I have it right here. Public hearing scheduled for Tuesday, the 27th. The one that got changed with the council.
So, Mr. Chairman, you're looking to hold off water and sewer until after the public hearing because it does not come in at the same time. Is that
I
correct?
mean, that's my thought. We lost a meeting anyway, and it's not something that needs to be submitted until, I think, like May or something. I forget the deadline, but,
I just tried to streamline it all.
no, that's no problem. I just, unless anybody has an issue, I just think that might be the way to go for this year.
Well, because we lost today, I would certainly agree with that. So next week, we would start with subsidies on Tuesday?
So that's my question. We've got a few to go. We've got all the capital, all the restricted, which are pretty lengthy.
May I make a recommendation, Jay? I'm not going to be here next Thursday.
Okay.
So for Tuesday, I mean, that could be the subsidy one, because I never touch subsidies. I level fund them or I don't touch them, and then that's a political football, and I just say nothing. So if Tuesday we did restricted capital and revenues, I can handle that, and then Thursday, whatever happens, happens. Because Barbara will be here on Thursday to answer. She can handle subsidies. Yeah.
I'm used to it.
Well, but just for my education, what does this board propose to do with respect to subsidies?
I just have a couple questions on it.
But I mean, I don't see kind of getting into the weeds on these subsidies.
That's,
You have, if I may, you have a subsidy, and I think it's the veteran.
Yes.
I think they want to come and explain their requested increase.
And that's fine. The way, and I kind of explained that in the, they'll probably want to explain what they want to do. They want to create sort of the Ballard benches in front of the War Memorial, which makes sense because of where it is located. They're also raising funds. So we just put into the budget, basically $10,000. Any funds they raise is only going to decrease what we actually need to provide from the town side, or would like to provide from the town side.
You know, don't have a position for or against them, for instance. I'm just trying to figure out, who are they lobbying? Are they lobbying us or are they lobbying the council?
Us.
Both.
Why? I mean, that's my question.
Well, because
That's-
we can remove that from the budget.
that's just
can-
the process.
It's its own political football.
Well, I know we can.
Well, for example, simply two questions that don't have to get answered right now. You have a contribution, a line titled Contribution Other Expenses, which is new to this year, $12,500. But in its explanation, it says Pee Wee football. So why isn't it just simply labeled Pee Wee football? And then again, Westerly Armory restoration. That restoration has been going on before the first year I served on this board over 19 years ago. It's not restoration. It says in its explanation, it offsets operational costs. So that line needs to be corrected so people understand this is a taxpayer contribution to the Armory's operational costs. This is no longer their restoration. Those are the only issues I have.
And with a lot of things that we've been doing over the last couple of years is chart of account cleanup. And some things just get labeled one thing one year, and then it just, that fund, that Westerly Armory line is delete the restoration, and it's basically doing the town's contribution. But to your point, it's just if somebody's just looking at that for a first time, how many, we're basically restoring all this time. So yes, that's just chart of account. Yep.
That's all that is.
Yep.
What's the line number?
The only,
101, 1306, 506, 630. Just delete.
I just want to, one quick thing is visiting nurse services, I thought went out of business.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I understood that visiting nurse services went out of business.
Whatever's in the budget reflects requests.
Well, this was recent, so.
Right, so, we could check on that.
Follow up
I mean, I just happened to see it on the news.
When did the request need to be submitted by?
on November 14th.
Okay, so what happened since then?
I've seen it recently, yes.
Okay.
So I'm just, but there were requests, everything was put in. The first year we did it, a couple years ago, we went through every single request, every letter, and all the documents and all that. We didn't do that last year. So it kind of limits our ability to really have a whole lot of expertise with regard to what to fund these at if we don't have really any information on the request. Now, they appear to be mostly level funded anyway. And I know we're getting into a topic that we're not doing, but I'm trying to, if there's any information that can be made available that might help us, I guess. Yeah, we don't need it.
Yeah, what,
Out like 10,000.
well, Jay, what we did 2 years ago, and what I think the council also did 2 years ago, was whether you want to do this or not, I think Dan did it last year, but both bodies designated one person to sort of go through all the information and double check. And so one person on both council and Board of Finance sort of made themselves that subsidy expert. I know Ken wants to.
I just, if the information's available somewhere for us to do a little bit of background, that would be great.
Yeah.
Then we just have something to work off of.
Well, I've had my multiple years of pain of trying to understand and even adjust some of the subsidies. So I'll be the first to tell you that if the town manager has put in what they've requested, and if there's not a substantial increase other than this one scenario under the veterans, which they're trying to gain money for to offset that, then I am going to simply make it known that I will accept them as presented, because it's just too much of a political.
And typically it gets put back in anyways. But
Exactly. So there's no sense in even looking at that money.
And I just want to clarify that all I did was level fund from last year, so this does not reflect their requests.
And
I'm just making that.
I respect. I'm not interested in necessarily any increase request. I'm interested in level funding. That's what I'm interested in.
Okay. Not sure if I had. The only thing I was going to mention is with regard to the Thursday meeting next week, that we put town budget and school budget both on the agenda. That way the school knows it will be discussed at some level. We'll have to decide. And that's, I think, where we need to think a little bit about that. We had pretty extensive discussions with them, fairly frank discussions. In the end, we will have to make recommendations whether the district or the school committee agrees or disagrees with our recommendations. Having said that, do we want? No, I don't. Doesn't seem at this point that we would need to. That we would have.
I would think we do.
Okay.
And I think, yes, I think next Thursday we should talk about the school with the school, but I think thereafter we may need a meeting on Tuesday to finalize what we're going to do, if we can have that time.
That was my question. If you look at the original schedule, was the 27th designed to be a final presentation? Is that what the 27th is?
That's a public hearing,
Right.
The public hearing, we actually, prior to that, we have to
Right.
make recommendations.
So my question is, if the 20th has its agenda already set, which I believe it does, and the 22nd is partially its subsidies, and then in theory the school, I can't imagine that after that there's enough time to come up with what amounts to a consensus.
Well, and the reason I put out I think we can cover subsidies at the Tuesday meeting unless.
Oh, well, okay.
I mean, unless we're planning anything dramatic, I think the sort of thinking going in is that we'd be pretty close to funding it as requested by the town manager.
So Tuesday would be restricted capital and subsidies.
Yeah, whatever's left on the town side.
That's fine.
I guess what I'm asking is with regard to the school meeting and then a sort of final, what do we see doing on that Thursday meeting? I know we need clarification. I think it seems we need clarification with regard to the healthcare issue. Does the school have some ideas for, does it want to revise its budget request or something? Do we see a whole meeting with regard to that, and who's important to have there? Do we want to have everybody, or do we just want to have the superintendent? I mean, we don't have the town council and the town manager at these meetings, right?
I think it's, with respect to the school and it being a separate entity, I think we should absolutely invite the superintendent. Because it's a public meeting, if the school committee would like to attend, they can certainly attend, speak at the public comment, but they don't have to convene a meeting like we had the three with them. But certainly I would like to have the superintendent sit with us, and if we have any questions, we can extend that to him.
I agree with that, but my only concern is that might be an extended conversation. So if in fact at the end of that, which may inform some other decisions, especially with regard to the town budget, there may be some additional time, whether you can tack it on at the end of that meeting on the 22nd, next Thursday, or that may in fact require another meeting before we coalesce around a recommendation. That's my issue. There may be some time required to coalesce around.
And I agree. I think we need to move the public hearing out to that Thursday, if I understand this correctly, giving us that Tuesday for a general meeting amongst ourselves. And that way, if we need it, fine. If we don't, at least we gave it to ourselves.
Okay. I think we should just, with regard to scheduling, so whoever is, we should have meeting Thursday. It should have both town budget and school budget on the agenda so that we can talk about whatever we want. And then we should schedule a meeting for Tuesday, the 27th. Same thing. And then the 29th is public hearing.
Perfect.
Does that give us?
It does, because, and I was wondering if you needed this. I have it up just in case you did. All the charter says your public hearing can be whenever you want. You just have to have your transmittal to the council not later than the first Monday of April. So that if you do that Thursday, that next Monday is the first Monday in April.
Right. The only question, when we're supposed to make a recommendation available to the public prior to the public hearing, so it doesn't leave a whole lot of time, but that's what we've done, right? Right.
Yeah, prior.
Tentative recommendation, whatever you want to call it. I mean, we'll
And we can still, I believe we could still meet that if, depending on, I mean, arguably all it says, not to be a wordsmith, but prior to the public hearing, the town clerk shall publish this tentative municipal budget on the town's publicly accessible website or future electronic equivalent. And so if your public hearing is on well, I guess that's your point, right?
So I've got this spreadsheet I put together. It's a little bit similar to what we did last year.
Yeah.
Where we just basically took that and made that into the finance board's recommendation. And that was just posted as a PDF online. So I'll send this to this group, and I guess
Okay.
we can decide if that's what we'll work off. It doesn't have the detail that it had last time around, but I don't think that's a problem. That way everybody knows what it is we're proposing, if anybody wants to provide input. And that can be made available. I can get it right at the end of that meeting and put somewhere. And
Yeah, I'll throw it right up on the website.
Okay.
So the agendas for next week are remain the same as posted.
No, Thursday.
Thursday, the subsidies on Tuesday,
Yes,
and the review of the school budget and the town budget on Thursday,
that's what, right.
and then the additional review on Tuesday, the 27th, for
Right, and then the public hearing just gets pushed back. Yeah. Yeah, now we can just throw it online and okay.
With respect to time, if we're done with the business, I'm asking that, then I would like to consider.
Yes, absolutely. I was just trying to think out loud and get us on some kind of a plan, so feel free.
Motion to adjourn.
All's in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I've never, not, I think there might have been a school committee once, but,
Thank you, guys.